Hi guys, we're back here in my workshop in Lyme Regis, and this is bringing the Axminster Skills Centre to your home. Today's video is going to be all about making wooden fruit. Really, the fruit is just the outcome of playing with friction chucks or jam chucks. So that's what I want to look at. We're going to look at a little bit of work holding on the lathe. The fun bit, the fruit, is the end result. Just a couple of questions from yesterday, and all the questions that were posed hopefully would have been answered on the website now, or the Facebook page. But one of the really common questions where do I get the Foamex for making the mold on the resin molds, and where do I get the mold release tape? Now, as a company, Axminster don't sell that yet. But watch this space. But at the moment, I've been sourcing from eBay and Amazon. So if you need some of that, you can get it in small sheets or rolls of the actual mold release tape from those guys. You know, anything like that, the hardware sort of side of it, get from those. Right, so we're not going to focus on me with this project. We're going to look at what we're actually doing. So you're going to hear me, but you won't actually see me. Like I say, you're going to see my hands, you're going to see the tools, and you're going to see what's happening. That's the most important thing, so you can go away and have a go with it. So I've got Charlie behind the camera today. So he's going to be in control and hopefully asking me some of the questions that I can answer for you. So if you want to change the camera, Charlie. There will be a few times where I have to have the dust extractor going. I'm wearing protective glasses. Normally I would be wearing my full face visor, powered respirator, but today I'm wearing glasses so you can hear me. When it comes to sanding, I will be using a dust extractor because we're going to be using some quite dusty materials. All timber, as you know, is toxic. The dust, you don't want to take any in, so don't let anybody tell you that one is worse than another. They're all dangerous. So we must protect ourselves. So we've got a dust extractor here, taking the dust from source. Now, I've got two timbers to use, and this is an example of what we're going to be making. So we're going to make a pear. Actually, we're going to make a pear out of yew and an apple out of Paduk. So we're swapping them around a little bit. Okay, so we're going to change over. So I'm going to go through the whole process. We're going to keep it to about 40-45 minutes. And like I say, ask the questions as you think of them. So there's quite a lot to go through on this one. Let's start right at the beginning by centering up. Okay, so I'm using a marking gauge. As an apprentice, we used to do this as we were having our tea breaks, coffee breaks. And using a marking gauge means that you don't have to look at what you're doing. And it also means our pre-prepared blanks, which had corners cut off, that didn't become a problem in trying to sort of line up corners with rules and things like that. So there we are, nice little center point. Now we're just going to use an awl just to find center-ish. Whatever happens, I always say whatever happens in a minute, it's going to be round anyway. So there we go. Okay, and then in the headstock here, we're going to use a little pro drive. So this is a little 16mm pro drive, and what this is a little sprung center there. So that will go over my center point, and as I push with the tailstock, it'll engage those prongs there. So we're going to start with the apple. I find that a little bit more of an interesting shape to start with. And if you're into production turning, you'll have no problems with the shape. I always find making things like apples and pears, spheres, that sort of things that need to be a particular shape, obviously going to be the hardest ones. So practice these. Again, when I was an apprentice, that's over 30 years ago now, we used to make a lot of wooden eggs, and trying to turn a wooden egg and make it look like an egg is really quite difficult. The same here. This is going to look like a Disney apple and a Disney pear, so that perfect sort of apple and pear. If you hold a real apple up, they're all shapes. We want to make this just right. So nice and voluptuous, nice and curvaceous, lots of nice shapes. So there we are. So that is held between centers. I've got the tailstock nicely pinched up, and we've got the pro drive working. So let's get turning. I'm not going to have the dust extraction on just yet. Helps if I turn the power on to the lathe, I suppose. So lathe speed at 0 first, turn the machine on, and then away we go. I'm going to be turning this at around about 2,000 revs. I'm going to start with a 10mm bowl gouge, or 3/8 bowl gouge. So there we are, about 2,000 revs. Get my gouge, so let's go for that one. We're going to minimize, for me, if I'm in production, I want to minimize the amount of tools that I'm actually picking up. So this is the bowl gouge, and we're also going to use a little 1/8 or 3mm parting tool as well. So first cuts is a roughing cut with the bowl gouge, so no bevel rubbing here. And the purpose of cutting those corners off means I don't have to keep moving the tool rest in and out. So you can make lots of these in a day and keep the tool rest in position. So there we are, we've roughed down to a cylinder with a roughing cut. Now we're going to use the bowl gouge as a skew, turn it right the way over, 45-degree presentation to the cutting edge, and just skim across that surface. So we're going to get a nice finish. There we are. So this is going to be the top of my apple. So I'm going to rub the bevel first, and then bring that handle round. The flute direction is around about 2 o'clock. So again, rub the bevel, start pushing the handle round. Now this is the reason that I'm using a bowl gouge over a spindle gouge. Spindle gouge at this amount over the tool rest tends to get a little bit a little bit of vibration. So a bowl gouge is nice and strong, and I don't get that. So that's that first curve. Now we'll do the back of the apple. And this is just a roughing cut initially, and I'm basically just lifting the handle up and sweeping round. Then we go back to the bevel rubbing cut, rubbing the bevel at the beginning, bring the handle round. I need to get out of my own way because I need to bring that handle right the way over. And this is one of the big differences between a bowl gouge and a spindle gouge, is that with a bowl gouge, it's all about handle movement. With spindle gouges, it's all about the rotation of the gouge as well. There we are. So that's the basic outside shape done. Just before we carry on with our parting tool, let me just show you what's happening. Are we all right there? That's okay. All right. So all we're doing there is we just created that nice shape. Now we're going to go back in with the bowl gouge. We can bring the camera back over there, Charlie. I want to just show you that we've got no tearing going on. We've got a really nice finish because the bevel's rubbing, and that's what we want. So now we're going to go back in with a parting tool. We're going to go with 1/8 parting tool, 3mm. You all right, Charlie? Yeah. So now we're going to use the front of the parting tool, but we're also going to use the very side. So to start with, if we push forward, take out the waste, and then just use this side, just tilt it in slightly, and it makes a fantastic end grain scraper. And so you can finish off that little reverse curve ever so easily. It's quite a delicate little cut, and that also leaves a tiny little amount there to clean away. Same on the back end. I want to minimize the amount of timber that I have to clean away at the end. So now we're ready to sand. So we're going to have the dust extractor on. Before we do, I'm just going to explain where we're going with the abrasive. So we're going to start with our 100, and we're going to go 150, 240, 400, 600. At that point, we're going to sanding seal and then just leave it. That won't be the finish. The finishing is all done off the lathe. So let's start sanding. Charlie, could you turn the extractor on for me?
Just quickly, what would you say is a good starter piece?
A good start, timber. Starter timber, basically anything that's free, to be quite honest. Any timber can be turned, but you know the cost of blanks nowadays. Padook's quite nice, but it's quite peppery. Sycamore, if we're talking UK timbers, I would say something like sycamore or beech, elm, oaks, chestnuts, all of those sorts of timbers work really, really well. But anything, I mean, the dimensions of these are around about 75mm long for a pear, and 75mm diameter for the pear and the apple, and about 100mm long for the pear, 75mm for the apple. Whatever you can get is my honest answer. If we're talking about what will sell more, colourful timbers. The paler timbers you'll always have left, but you need paler timbers to show off the colourful ones. One of my pet hates in turning is Banksia nuts, but they're the quickest to sell in fruit form. So there you go. You know, colour sells all the time, and lovely grain, of course, sells all the time. Okay.
And is this being streamed on YouTube?
This is going to be on YouTube from 8 o'clock this evening, guys. So my extractor doing a great job there, taking that dust away. Now I'm working quite heavily with the very first 100 grit, and then moving on to 150. In the world of production turning, we were always told never to turn the lathe down. Move yourself quicker to stop the heat build-up. Most people aren't in that production world, so turn the lathe speed down, sand at a slower speed, and you'll have less dust. Keep your dust extractor nice and close. Don't sand too long on the end grain, otherwise things start to split. So we're up to finishing grades now, so we've got a 400. Then a 600 grit. There we are, so that's all the sanding done for that first piece. So our next job on that is to add a little bit of sanding sealer. So look, this is Paduke. Paduke tends to be a very dusty timber anyway. And you can see these white speckles here. These are actually holding a lot of Paduke dust. Now watch this. Be careful with your sanding sealer. This is already turning pink from Paduke. Be careful when you go and then try and seal something that's pale, because you'll make your lovely pale pieces of timber pink. So maybe have 2 jars of sanding sealer. This sanding sealer is a cellulose based sealer. This particular one is a chestnut product, cellulose sanding sealer. You can see the red that's coming off on that brush. Chestnut sanding sealer, and I've just diluted it 50% with chestnut cellulose sanding sealer. Again, that's not for everybody, but for me I find it works better and soaks in further and dries quicker as well. And the good thing with cellulose sanding sealer, it will eat through waxy or oily timbers, so it will penetrate rather than just sit on the surface. Now look at that, that's the orange dust from that Paduke. There we go, so we'll pop that to one side just for the minute, and now that can just come off the lathe while we turn the pear. Nothing else to do with that at the moment. Okay, that's ready just to be put in a box with your other 150 pieces of fruit. Let's just move that back a little. We're going to pop the pear on. So we've got wax on this end. I don't want it here. We'll have it on this end so it doesn't slip. There we go. So same thing. I know the speed is fine for this. This is around about 2000. Everything's secure. If you're not sure, lathe speed to 0. Turn the lathe on, turn it back up again. Safety always first. Don't get any surprises. That lathe speed can be a real issue. So I'm back up to 2000 revs. We're going to go back to same bowl gouge, same cut. So rough cut first. Timber we're now using is yew. Can you repeat the name of the wood you're using? So this is yew, and the apple is Paduke. P-A-D-A-U-K. And this is a piece of yew. So roughing cut first, and then skew cut, just to give ourselves a nice clean finish. Okay, so the top of the piece of fruit, in this case, is the same as the apple. It's going to be up here, so this is the thicker section. We're going to slim this down. So bevel rubbing, create that curve, bring the handle round. Take your time with this. This is a practice cut. You won't get this immediately. Bring the handle round all the way, get out your own way, round, and the parting tool can get in there in a moment. Now we're going to take the waste away from this section, so this again, it's a bit of a lift. Now bevel rubbing cut, you can break this down if you want, so if you're struggling with that bevel rubbing cut, do one cut, and then bring the curve over with the bevel rubbing again, handle round, just to make life a little bit easier, back around with the handle, and then the final curve at the very top. Everybody has their own idea of what a pear should look like. Again, if you look at real pears, they look nothing like that, but this is supposed to be a Disney pear, remember? It's got to be that perfect sort of shape. So parting tool again, let's take away some of that excess timber. And this has been the reason really that I'm using a single pointed centre rather than a ring centre. There we are. Again, I'll just stop that quickly so you can see the finish before we go any further. This particular piece of view is really nice. It's got some sort of mineral collection there where you see these lovely brown marks have occurred. So, right, we're going to go through the process again. Remember the grit sizes are 100, 150, 240, 400, 600. All right, Charlie, can I have that extractor on again? Use one of those timbers that can be an issue when sanding. It doesn't like any heat at all, so just be careful how long you spend on the ends. There we are, that'll be enough with the 100. Now 150. So the finishing grade 400 and 600. So this is 400. Sanding sealer, show off that wonderful grain there. There we are. Before that dries, it's quite important that you wipe off any excess. You don't want sanding sealer pooling on the surface. By now, because of that solution, it's soaked in enough. And this is just going to take off any residue that would normally become sticky on that surface. So no finish or sealer likes to pool at all. It needs to soak in. There we are, that's doing its job. Again, we leave that now, nothing else to do. With that one, it's already risen the grain. The grain's risen up. We've the excess grain that comes up where you normally sand off. We're going to use a burnishing compound, almost an abrasive compound, which will do our final sanding for us and make that really smooth. I mean, already it's nice and smooth, but it'll make it even better and real glassy in finish. So now we've got to take off the top and the bottom, so those hold points. So we're now going to start looking at our friction or jam chucks. So that just means a little bit of a change around on the lathe. So instead of our centers, we're going to take our tailstock out the way just for the minute. Remove our drive, and we're going to add the chuck. In this case, it's the Evolution SK 114, and we've got gripper jaws on here, so some quite big dovetail gripper jaws. Let's have a look and see which chuck I'm going to need. So I've got a variety of chucks back here of different sizes, and luck be as it's the first one. Yeah, that's going to look okay, I think. That's probably... Yeah, so it's quite important that you choose your materials wisely when doing these. You think about something like ash and chestnut. They're known to be timbers that split quite easily. So you want to use a timber that's not going to split. This is a bit of tulip. I've got some acacia, some sycamore. I use elm, beech, all of those sorts of timbers. They work really well. Two tools you'll need now, or not tools, but one tool being the hammer, and then just a little bit of beech dowel. This beech dowel is going to go up through my headstock, come out there, and that's going to be my left hand to start me off. There we go, and then just give them a tap. Don't worry if it's not dead true, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. And we're going to go for a small bowl gouge. Now this bowl gouge I have ground, it's more of a pointed, more of an Ellsworth type grind.
The image quality isn't on our end. The image quality isn't that good at the moment, but it's not on our end.
Oh, okay. Right, okay. If you're having trouble with image, at the moment we're not getting that on our side, so I'm not quite sure. Be patient, hang on with us. Is our Wi-Fi signal okay? Okay. We'll persevere, guys. We'll persevere. We're just going to add another light. And see if that makes a difference. Let me know if that makes a difference or not. So look, what we're going to do... There we go. What we're going to do is just very gently... using the tip of that bowl gouge, just bring that chisel around. There we are. So we can get right in there. I'm actually going to take that tailstock out the way a minute. Get in danger of giving me turner's elbow, and I strike the end of that. Now we're not going to start with 100 grit. We're going to start with 150. We don't need the 100. A little bit of a sand, and then a bit of sealer. Probably the most monotonous part of fruit making is what I call top and tailing. How we're looking image at the moment. Is it any better? We don't know. There we are. Now we're on to 400. Now I'm going to start speeding through this because I'm quite conscious I don't want this to overrun too much. So. There we are, 600 grit, lay speed back, nice and slow, or off, sorry. There we go, get rid of that. Now keep it running, I don't want any of that that sanding sealer to fall down or go down into the join. So there we are, let's just pop him out, look. Now we'll turn them around, use that little knockout stick as my guide. Knock them in. Same thing, so this is the top of the apple now, so I'm just making light cuts. You don't need to take any massive cuts, there's only a small amount there to take away. There we go. Another little sand. Keep that tool rest in the position that you can get rid of it quickly. 400. There we go. Let's have a look. Well, a little bit of sealer on there and we'll pop them out. We'll let you have a look at that one. Remember, we don't have to do anything to the sealer yet. So there we are. That's the finished apple at the moment. No signs, or there won't be any signs of work holding at all. Undo all my drilling off the lathe because I don't want straight holes. If you're going to put a clove in the bottom, I tend to put a 2mm hole in the bottom because the same size hole as the one we're going to put in the top is a bit too big and the clove won't hide the hole. But in the top, about 4mm works for me, and then I can turn a stem to fit. So at the moment, that's all we do with that piece. Let's just get the pear in there and we'll do the same for that one. I'm going to speed through this one though. You've seen how we do it once. So, same small gouge, just a nicely pointed chisel. I used to say when we were doing these, if you do get one pop out of the chuck, don't panic, but trying to tell people not to panic is almost impossible. Basically hold the heel of the tool against a piece of fruit and it'll wedge itself back in again, and then you can stop the lathe and just true him up. There we are. So again, bit of sanding on the bottom. What's the time? How are we doing for time? Everything okay, Charlie? 150, 240. $400. And then our 600. Okay, bit of sanding sealer. Remember, just try and stop it from running down the side of the chuck there. Turn him around. Guys, if you're getting the picture quality dropping in and out, I do apologise. We're on literally a phone here with my own Wi-Fi. There's nothing, we've turned everything else off. We've done everything we could possibly do to make this work. So persevere with us. It seems to be dropping in and out. So 150. Again, just working our way through the grades. Okay. There we are. 400 and 600. Tap the right part of the stick, you'll be alright. So there we are, again, we're all ready. Couple of changes now. We're going to drill that one, we'll drill them both. No more sanding sealer needed. So we're going to drill them both, turn the stems and then get some polish on there. I'm going to have a quick change of chuck. And we're going to use, what's the messages like on internet at the moment? How are we looking? Any good? Is that any good? So look, there we are. All I'm adding now is another chuck. I've got a set of, basically a set of pin jaws. These are the type of jaws that we used to have before these wonderful woodworking jaws were out. These are the ones I use. I would be honest with you, if you've never used a set of those, don't start now. There's better options out there. These type of jaws, these are pin jaws, and these will keep your fingers safer for longer. I've been using these all my life. I've grown up with these, and I find these work for me better. But if you're going to buy a set, go for these ones. They're far safer for you. We do these are known as pin jaws. And these were, the idea of these come about really as the old pin chuck, where you had a little bar with a little pin on it. You drilled a hole for natural edge bowls, and then that pin locked. Now, of course, you just expand the jaws into that hole, and you've got your natural edge held while you turn the back side. But I would start with something like that as opposed to these. But these are my favourite. That's what I've been used to. So let's do our drill first. Let's drill a hole in our pieces of fruit. I want an angled hole, and I'm going to put the drill bit right the way into those jaws. I don't want to use any more of that drill bit, or I don't want any more of that drill bit exposed than I'm going to use, otherwise things can go wrong. My fingers aren't behind the bit, I'm not going to push hard, so I know the bit is nice and sharp. Nice and gentle push, get the drill bit in, then you can angle it a little bit. And if you have too much of that drill bit exposed, you've got the likelihood of actually snapping that bit off as you start to drill. So you've got to be quite careful with this. I find this easier purely because if I've got a drill bit in a drill and I'm trying to do it, I've got to hold the piece of fruit, which is slippery, and then I've got to hold the drill. Again, there's likely for me to hurt myself is far greater. So there we are, nice little angled hole in those two. Whilst that chuck is still on there, we're going to just swap that drill bit out and now turn a stem. A little bit of 1/4 inch or 6mm stock here, and we're just going to get this skew chisel out. One of my favourite tools, the skew, and we might do a session on the skew separately at some point. There we are. Nice and quick, about 2000, 22. And this is going to be the stem. So I'm going to make the stapler down and fit that hole. And then a little bit of just round that over. We're going to sand this in a minute, so that won't be the final shape. Push forward. That's our first one. Pull the resin. I've got resin on the brain. Pull the blank out. Do your next one. Okay, again, number 2. That's all we need for this exercise. So that can come out with change. No, we're going to keep that chuck on there. Let's just have a look at the moment. So what we've got a nice angled, there we are, a nice angled stem. We're going to just sand those off as well. We don't want a rounded top to our stem. So we're going to round those off. I'm not going to do it now, but I'm going to show you how it's done. What I want to do instead is have a nice little angle to the stem. So what that is basically, and I can see Charlie poised with a question here, we're going to change from that to that little angle purely by putting a sanding disc, which I've managed to cover up. A sanding disc, faceplate ring, and then expanding my C-jaws onto that gives me my sanding disc on a Velcro backing, and then I'm able to do all my sanding and just radius that over for the stem. What's the question?
Are these the old step jaws which came with the internal/external grip?
You got it. Exactly what he said. That's dead right. The old what I class as engineering jaws, really. Stems made, we just need to polish now, and that will be the end of those. So we're going to look at polishing mops. I'm using a little what we call a pigtail, parallel pigtail that comes off of a polishing machine. You can use other versions out there, things such as that type. So they're on a Morse taper, 1 or 2 Morse taper available, and they just go straight in there. I would bring the tailstock up if you're going to use one of these though. All right, that just keeps everything in place. And so we're only going to use 2 actually, but 3 mops here. I've got 2 stitched, dark compound, pale compound, and then I've got a loose leaf here for carnauba wax, or wood turner stick. Wood turner stick generally just means that it's got a little bit of beeswax added to it. What have we got? Dark timbers there. So I'm going to use the dark compound, and we're going to use Tripoli. Look up Tripoli, or Tripomax is another brand name of it. It's not the Rouge, don't think it's Rouge. Rouge is a silver polish. This is Tripoli or Tripomax. It's a first stage plastics polish, and brass and copper, that sort of thing. Fantastic abrasive compound for timber, for dark timbers as well. Paler timbers I tend to go with buff most of the time, which is a slightly paler material. About 1400 revs, little bit of polish every time you grab a piece of fruit. And this is leveling down that sanding sealer and taking off any of the risen grain. Great way of polishing this because it doesn't leave any circular polishing marks. Now already there's no wax on that yet, but we've got a really nice finish straight off of the compound. So on to the pear. Hold on to them, they do get a bit slippery when you start getting that glaze. I mean, even if you're doing batches, you know, in serious numbers, hundreds at a time, you're still, well, certainly I can anyway, I still get excited when you come across timbers like that. It's what keeps you sort of going. Something to look forward to, or mostly if you're doing a big batch of the same pieces. So there we are, that's your polishing section. Now we're going to buff, so we're going to use a loose leaf, softer mop now. Same speed, but I'm using now carnauba wax. Which is a wonderful material. It's in a lot of polishes. If you use friction polish, there's a heavy concentrate of it in there. But again, little and often, so a little bit. And then that's the finish so far. I'll show you the difference. You can see it come to life straight away. I'm not quite sure whether the camera can pick that up, but you get a really nice shine from that. Quite slippery. If you're doing a big batch, a little cardboard box down here cut out to protect with a little bit of tissue in the bottom would help, or a little bit of bubble wrap just in case you do get one fly. There we go, you can see the sort of finish that we're expecting from that carnauba wax. Lovely and smooth, and no polishing marks either. Which is the bonus, of course. There we are already, that lovely shine. We'll add our angled. Okay, Charlie, if you put the camera back up, that would be grand. There we are, guys. So I'm going to bring this a little bit closer. Hopefully you'll be able to get the the sheen from those two. So a really nice piece of yew, and a lovely piece of padauk. Using the friction chucks or jam chucks, like I said, choose your timbers carefully. Some of these have been with me since my apprenticeship, so it shows you how long they'll last. Single tap, get the angle just right. So when you're making one of these, and it's just from solid, drill it out first, and then I'm just cutting an angle in the middle. Too much angle, you're going to get them not hold very well. Too little angle, and then they're holding there so well that you're going to damage them getting them out. So you've got to play with it a little bit. But then once you've got them, a single tap should be enough. Use timbers that don't split easily. Beech is a good one, easily accessible. Sycamore's another one, all those sorts of things. Not ash, not softwood, not chestnut, but all the others. So there we are. I hope you've enjoyed today. I'm sorry if there is a few little technical hiccups. We're trying every day to make this better for you. So join us again tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a bit of hollow form. I'm not going to do a massive hollow form. I don't want to spend ages trying to hollow out a pot and you not see what's going on. So a small little Thierry Martenon inspired garlic pot. So until tomorrow, guys, happy turning. I'll see you at 4.